I ain't never seen a DA say what somebody ain't, and the investigation has not been closed.
House is not owned by Cat Williams. It was a rental property. There was another out-of-state company that was leasing the house, and Traynell Williams and Reggie Carroll were the two tenants.
Investigation had even run its course before reports were completed, before witnesses were fully heard, and the question that thundered through Corey Holcomb's voice was simple but devastating. When have you ever seen justice rush to clear a man before the dust of crime had even settled? When have you ever seen the law act as shield before it acted as sword? And the answer he gave was one no one wanted to hear. It was not justice, it was theater. A cover-up staged in real time, a performance meant to bury truth beneath headlines. Reggie Carroll's name should have been etched into memory for the hope he brought through his jokes, for the way he turned pain into medicine, but instead, his name became a whispered secret in back rooms, a reminder of what happens when you know too much, when you refuse to bow to the invisible contracts that govern Hollywood's most powerful players. According to Corey, the official police reports had been tampered with, edited to erase the lines that would have tied the crime to the orbit of Cat's inner circle, and he held in his trembling hands not speculation, but a version of the report that noted the presence of a black SUV near the crime scene, its license plate registered to a man known not just as bodyguard, but as shadow to Cat Williams. Yet that detail vanished in the sanitized version released to the press, a disappearance too convenient to dismiss. And then came the grainy footage, captured by a gas station camera across the street, a clip Corey swore existed, though never admitted in court, never displayed to jurors, never logged into evidence. In it, the SUV rolls to a stop, a door opens, and a tall figure steps out. Not Cat himself, but someone bound to him by loyalty and paycheck, and when Corey asked why that evidence never saw daylight, his answer was sharp enough to draw blood. Because they needed Cat cleared fast. Because too many names, too many sponsors, too many executives, too many politicians had stakes in the survival of his image. The audience that listened didn't clap, didn't laugh, didn't move. They sat frozen as Corey's voice cracked not with comedy, but with grief, and he laid bare the weight of threats that Reggie's family had endured after his funeral. His sister confessed to him through tears that anonymous voices called their phones cold and sharp, warning them to stop asking questions or lose more than they already had, strangers lingering outside their home as silent messengers of fear, and for the family, silence was not choice, but survival. But Reggie himself, perhaps sensing that survival was slipping through his fingers, had already left behind words in a diary that Corey now read aloud, a sentence so devastating it silenced every screen it reached. If anything happens to me, just know it came from inside. These words did not sound like paranoia. They sounded like prophecy, like a man who had already accepted that his fate was sealed not by chance, but by betrayal, by the very system he thought he belonged to. And when Corey slammed his fist on the table demanding when in history anyone had ever seen a DA absolve a man before evidence was even reviewed, he was not just accusing individuals, he was accusing the very skeleton of justice itself, insisting that emails leaked from the DA's office carried orders from the top to clear Cat immediately, warning that too many names would burn if the investigation dared to stretch its arms into places it wasn't allowed to reach. In Corey's voice, the tragedy transformed into conspiracy, not random violence, but calculated sacrifice, a life erased to protect the golden flow of money and reputation. And his fury sharpened when he revealed that comedy clubs were exploiting Reggie's name for ticket sales without giving his family a dime, vultures fattening themselves on his corpse while the people who loved him remained silenced. He said they killed him twice, once with bullets and again with lies. And when the room fell into silence so deep it felt like mourning, Corey's eyes blazed not with performance. The storm that erupted in the aftermath of Corey's revelations was unlike anything the industry had seen, because within hours, the internet transformed into courtroom, graveyard, and battlefield all at once, hashtags multiplying, petitions gathering millions of signatures, protesters flooding the steps of the DA's office, demanding explanations for why a man was cleared before being investigated. And every frame of Corey's trembling hands and tear-streaked face became proof that this was no longer conspiracy, but testimony. No longer speculation, but indictment. And then came the video leak, the anonymous upload that spread from dark forums into the bloodstream of mainstream media within minutes. Footage showing a closed-door meeting between a senior law official and two Hollywood executives, their voices muffled but unmistakable as one said, "If Cat goes down, so do we. Clear him. Make the rest disappear." And with those words, the internet erupted, not with laughter but with fury, because this was no longer whispers, it was confession, an audio death sentence for the illusion of impartial justice. Corey returned to his platform in defiance, declaring that what the world heard was the sound of devils dealing in daylight, that Reggie had been the cost of a machine desperate to protect itself, and millions echoed his fury, flooding timelines with clips, prayers, demands. Reggie's sister, breaking through years of threats, stood before cameras and said with shaking voice that they had tried to buy her family, tried to silence them with money and intimidation, but that no mother, no sister, no brother should bury their loved one and then watch his killers walk free. Her words shattering hearts worldwide, igniting solidarity across celebrities, fans, and strangers who refused to let Reggie's blood become forgotten ink in an edited report. Yet, with exposure came danger, and Corey admitted he now lived under shadow, cars parked outside his home, anonymous calls in the night, figures trailing him after shows, warnings delivered through silence. But he stared into the camera and promised that if he disappeared, it would not be accident, but murder, proof that truth had become too dangerous to let live. Then he dropped the final bombshell, the revelation of Reggie's missing phone, a device declared lost for weeks, suddenly placed into Corey's trembling hands by a terrified insider, and on it were voice notes, recordings of Reggie himself detailing the threats he faced, recounting meetings where he was told to choose between signing contracts or dying, his voice cracking as he whispered that they meant it, that his days were numbered, and one line burned itself into history. "They told me I had two choices, sign or die. I think they mean it." The internet froze, then exploded, because these were not second-hand claims, but Reggie's own voice speaking from beyond the grave, the dead refusing to stay silent. Petitions surged, demands for federal investigation reached millions overnight, protesters chanting outside courthouses, and yet in the eye of the storm was Corey, holding Reggie's diary, reading words that said, "If I don't make it, remember me not as a victim, but as a man who tried to stand tall when the wolves closed in," and as his voice broke, millions felt tears of strangers fall as though they belonged to family, because in that moment Reggie ceased to be just a comedian. He became symbol of every silenced voice, every buried truth, every name erased to protect power. Corey thundered that they could silence a man, but not the truth, that Reggie's story would set the whole rotten system on fire, and the studio shook not with applause, but with dread, because everyone knew he was right. The final moments of his broadcast seared into history as Corey leaned into the camera, eyes blazing, whispering, "They killed him twice, but this time they won't bury him. The truth will bury them." And as the screen cut to black, the silence felt like a funeral bell tolling across the world. In the weeks that followed, the battle between narrative and truth raged like wildfire. Mainstream outlets attempting to cage the story with words like unverified, speculation, hysteria. But the people were no longer buying the script written by corporations. They had seen too much, heard too much, and Reggie's own voice had torn through the veil. Corey's warnings spread like scripture. This wasn't just about Reggie. This was about every voice that had been buried, every dream stolen, every family threatened into obedience. And his words struck chords so deep that silence became impossible, because to look away now would mean complicity in the same silence that killed Reggie.